I'm stuck out of town.
That's okay. I was just texting you because I was worried about quorum tonight, because Josh is away and Diana's on maternity leave. All good.
Oh, no, I'm here. Sorry, my bad.
You're fine. You're absolutely fine. Hi, everyone. It is 7:01 p.m. and I'd like to call the Public Safety and General Government meeting to order. We will start with roll call. Heidi Alterman.
Here.
Here. There we go. Nicole Ayers.
Present.
Josh Goldstein. Dominique Johnson.
Here.
Brian Meek. And Diana Revolus. Brian is here. Diana Revolus is on maternity leave, so she will not be joining us tonight. We have approval of 2 meetings minutes. We have acceptance of the minutes for June 23rd. Do I have a motion?
I move to accept the meeting minutes from
Does
June
anybody
20.
have any changes or corrections to the June 23rd meeting? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Hi.
Any nays? Okay, any abstentions? Brian Meek abstains. And then we have the second meeting, which was our special meeting on July 12th. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I so move, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ayers. Do I have any changes or corrections to those minutes? Hearing and seeing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hands.
Aye.
That looks like that passes unanimously. Thank you so much. Do we have anybody on the call for public participation? I see Diane Loricello has her hand raised. Do we want to allow her to speak?
We don't have a choice, right?
Yeah, we don't. No. Who is on from IT? Can you give Diane the opportunity to speak, please?
Diane, you know I want you to speak, of course.
I don't know if they've unmuted her. That's the problem.
Yeah, this whole thing's a problem.
Hey, Michelle, do you know who's on from IT? I haven't heard from, oh, no, they're coming back on. Okay.
I apologize. I lost internet connection.
Oh, that's okay. I was just asking for public participation. It looks like Diane Loricella has her hand raised. So if you could let her speak, that would be great.
Diane?
Yes, good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Mr. Meek, I hope that what I'm about to say will even give you some new information. So anyway,
always looking forward to it.
All right, well, good. Anyway, good evening, Madam Chair and the Council Committee. My name is Diane Loricella, and I just wanted to impart some history for 2 items on your agenda tonight. The first is in item 4 or section 4, item 1 is the Human Resources Pay Plan, once known as the Ordinance list. There are 22 staff still left on that list. Memory serves me correctly because I used to participate when it was allowed, but then I followed the history, and that is that members of the Personnel Committee from the Council were usually accorded performance interviews from the mayor's office before you were asked to vote for automatic pay plan increases. I ask that you insist that this occur because even though I am satisfied that many of our chiefs are terrific, still there needs to be performance reviews, and currently there is a problem happening in human resources with the lack of a DEI officer and any kind of response to the George Floyd situation. I mean, these are things that everyone can improve themselves. And also you give praise as well as performance review. Number 2, on section or item 5, if you have time tonight, and if not, I ask that you continue the discussion on, and I thank you for putting this on the agenda, of the council's participation with emergency preparedness. I just wanted to let you know that many, many years ago, around 1990, there was something called the Local Emergency Planning Committee that then Fire Chief Yost was, by law, by state law, each town had to have one of those. I was asked to be the chair of that committee as a civilian because of my background in hazardous materials. I served that for about a year and a half, maybe 2. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you is because it was a committee that involved the public as well, and including King Chemical. And I wanted to ask that when you discuss involving the council on training, which I think is terrific for emergencies, that you also include the possible use of civilians beyond the committee that Michelle puts together for getting public health emergencies. And that would include hazardous materials emergencies and climate emergencies, which are going to become more of a thing. So I'm happy to speak with anyone offline about the history of how successful that initial local emergency planning committee was. Esposito was the chair, the mayor at the time. When I was called away on business, I stepped away from that role, and then it became totally staff-centric. I highly ask that you do not make all of your special study committees staff or council-centric, because there are a lot of very good citizens that have information you can use and they want to help. So I thank you for your time, for giving me the time to speak, and have a nice evening.
Thank you, Ms. Loricello. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak during public participation? All right, we will go ahead and close public participation. We're moving on to new business. Our first item is the police department. Number 1, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents necessary to apply for and accept grant funds from the Department of Justice under the fiscal year 2022-23 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant in the amount of $32,235, account TBD. Do I have a motion?
Madam Chairperson, this is Nicole. I move the motion.
Thank you very much. And I believe we have Deputy Chief Zecca here to speak to this.
Yes, so this is a routine grant that we usually get every year. And we use it toward selective enforcement, patrols, etc., based on the needs of incidents that are going on at the time. So it's a standard grant.
All right, does anybody have any questions or comments they want to ask about this one? All right. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. I probably should have moved this one with it, but we'll go ahead and do the motion. Number 2, authorize the Chief of Police, Thomas E. Kowalik, to execute any and all agreements, documents, and or amendments that may be necessary to implement programs under the Department of Justice fiscal year 2022-23 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant, $32,235, account TBD. I am still confused as to what the difference is between this and number 1. Do I have a motion?
It's just the contingency cost over.
Yeah, that's right, right? It's just the contingency. I just wanted to make sure. Do I have a motion?
I move, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Johnson. Deputy Chief Zecca, do you have anything else to add to this, or we can go ahead and vote?
The second, I know we had changed the wording, and unfortunately I have the old wording in front of me, but it realistically is just so if we need to make any amendments to the grant, the chief is able to sign those documents.
Great. Yeah, I saw that Chief is on there. Does anybody have any other questions or comments on this? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Number 3 is authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all agreements, documents, and instruments with the state of Connecticut Department of Emergency Services and Public Protection for the use and improvement of telecommunications facilities in Wilton, Connecticut. Do I have a motion? Anybody?
I move the motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilperson Ayers. Deputy Chief Zeka, are you speaking about this one as well?
Yes, again, this is part of our overall radio system project that's already been in front of you. We are leveraging an existing state tower as we're going on the state backbone, but we need to put equipment onto that tower. So we need an agreement with the state.
Great. Does anybody have any questions or comments on this one? We are a quiet bunch tonight. All right, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, thank you. Number 4 under the police department is authorize the purchasing agent Sharon Connors to issue a purchase order under state contract pricing for 10 vehicles per Norwalk purchasing guidelines, not to exceed $420,000. Account number is noted. Do I have a motion?
I guess it's you and me, Madam Chair. I so move.
Thank you, Councilperson Ayers. I appreciate it. Deputy Chief Zeka, I turn it back over to you.
So as you know, getting vehicles at this point is very difficult with the supply chain issues. In our capital budget, we were allocated for 10 marked patrol cars. The authorization in front of you is relatively generic because the state contract pricing, the state contract bid was extended until September for the vendor that we previously used, but it's only for the 2022 Explorers, which you can no longer order. So the state still needs to go out. We're expecting in the next month or two, the state will go out to bid again for vehicles. And then once that bid is awarded, we would use whoever was the state contract, awarded the state contract to purchase the vehicles. But being that right now, the lead time in vehicles is increasing to ridiculous lengths of time. I've heard up to a year. And I've heard that the getting the chips for the vehicles is going to be even worse. So I don't know how long they're going to take. I want to, as soon as that is awarded, I want to be able to order the vehicles to try to mitigate it as much as we possibly can. So that's why you have a very generic authorization for the vehicles in front of you.
Got it. Councilmember Ayers, I see your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Deputy Chief, I did go into my budget binder and look, but I think I'm missing it. Is this the same lot of vehicles that we were talking about during the budget time when we had all the discussion about if we could get electronic or hybrid vehicles?
So I currently, no, so this is these are the allotment for July 1. We currently have 10 hybrid vehicles on order.
Okay, so an additional.
Yes.
Okay,
We usually try to purchase approximately 10 vehicles a year.
No, it might have been me not reading clearly. I didn't know where we were. So that clarified what
Yeah, I have 10 on order that were from last year's budget that are initially, when we ordered them, they told us it was going to be 30 weeks. It is now looking like it's going to be more. I spoke to the woman yesterday and she cannot, from MHQ, and she cannot give me any idea. She has nothing in her system yet in terms of, apparently the hybrids are even more difficult, or for some reason haven't quite gotten into the production line, it appears.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Councilmember Meek.
Yeah, 42,000 for an Explorer, it seems pretty light. Do those still have to be like fitted out with like all the
Yes.
safety gear and stuff?
So the upfits on the vehicles with the lights, et cetera, would be a different vendor.
Okay, we'll jump off that bridge when we get there, right?
So, and
Um,
honestly, I don't know exactly what the pricing is gonna be. I basically used what I have in the budget as the number because I don't have pricing yet because it hasn't been set.
No, I understand. Thank you. And then these are internal combustion engines?
These would be, we're expecting to be able to order hybrids, but it will all depend on, again, since everything's very, very up in the air, it's gonna depend on what I can actually get.
Thank you.
Councilmember Johnson, I saw you had your hand up, but then put it down. Do you have anything?
I did, but both Councilmember Ayers and Meek had my question answered. So thank you both.
Okay. My question was just a follow-up about the hybrid because you said that they are even more difficult or it's more of a challenge to get those. At a certain point, I would guess that you would sort of shift if needed to get the regular gas vehicles if needed.
If we need to, the intention is to order hybrids, but it will, once we get state contract pricing and can order, we'll evaluate it. We'll reevaluate right then to determine what it looks like in terms of deliveries. But
And then if we're not able to get the hybrids this time, maybe we could potentially do that since we're trying to get ahead of it next year. But again, it's TBD based on availability.
again, the intention is to order hybrids.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, tell
Of
you
course.
for certain we're ordering hybrids when everything is just so uncertain at this point.
Yeah, I totally get it. It's the world we live in right now. All right, does anybody else have any other questions or comments on this particular item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Councilwoman Johnson, did you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. That is
Thank you.
unanimous. Appreciate it, Deputy Chief Saka.
Thank you.
That was relatively painless. Next is Department of Public Works. Number 1, authorize the Department of Public Works to have South Norwalk Electric and Water install 2 new streetlights on the existing utility poles on Bates Court in accordance with the attached plan at an approximate one-time fixed cost of $960 and an approximate cost of $40 per month to be paid for from account number as noted. Can I have a motion for this, please? Anybody?
My colleagues must be asleep. I move it, Madam Chair.
I'm here. I just have kids in the background, but I moved
That's
them.
okay, don't worry about it. Councilmember Ayers, thank you. No worries, Councilmember Alterman. Okay, we have Paul here to speak to this, so I'll hand it over to you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Paul Sotnick. I'm a senior civil engineer with the Department of Public Works in Norwalk. Periodically, the city and the Department of Public Works will receive requests from the public to add additional streetlights to the existing grid system where there are dim spots or people feel that there should be additional lighting for various reasons. And we've received a request to have streetlights added from MF Descala and Company on Bates Court. I can share with my screen if you'd like to show you where exactly we're talking about adding these lights. And basically, right now, Bates Court comes down, and I'll give you the big view, and then I'll zoom in so that you can see the areas for the lights. Comes down in this area here, goes across, Franklin Street is here. So the new MF Descala complex that have been put in the apartments is down in the area in the bottom of my screen where my cursor is. And we currently have a light up in this section, up in this area here, but the lighting in here and in this area here as you head down is not that good. So we've received a request to add additional streetlights over in here and over in here, and I'll blow that up a little bit so that you can take a look at it and see. And you can see The existing Cobra head out on Martin Luther King Drive faces this way. And as you head down here, there's a retaining wall and head south on Bates Court. In this area, the elevation difference between this street for Bates Court and Martin Luther King is only a couple feet. But as you head further to the south, it gets to be almost 11 feet in this area. And then it's probably about 14 or 15 feet between this area and then here. So we were looking to have a new light installed on SNU pole 394 and then have a new light installed on SNU pole 034. These would be 31-watt energy efficient LED lights. And I can go down and show you the next section basically is where we have the spreadsheet for the costs and the breakout that I received from SNU. And basically to have the luminaire and the arm installed on the pole, it's $480 a piece. So that gives you the fixed cost of $960. And the electricity cost per month is $20 approximately per light for the total of $40. And that would come out of existing money collected for street lighting through the taxing.
Great. I see Councilmember Meek has his hand raised.
Yes, I'm not opposed to this at all. I just, is there a revenue component to this at all? Does the street, these properties get put into, I think it's 6th taxing district that puts an upcharge on property for lighting? Or is that already baked in with the other lights in the neighborhood or?
This falls in SNU territory, which is the 2nd taxing district. And yes, it is in the overall taxing rates. And there's a line item for streetlights.
So there's some revenue stream coming in to pay for this over time. Okay.
It goes into the account that's noted, and then the increase in cost would be paid out of that account.
Okay. And then, don't feel obliged to answer this question, but, where's Mr. Carr?
I believe he's on a personal leave. That's what
Okay.
I was told.
Okay, his office is empty. Just curious. But like I said, don't feel obliged to answer. Thank you.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions for Paul on this item?
I do.
Councilmember Ayers, thank you.
Hi, Paul. Good to see you. My
Hi,
question.
how are you doing?
Good. My question was just looking at this item and the next item. Is there a standard rate that we are charged? Because it's saying for the two items, the rate of electricity is a different rate. Why is that?
It basically, it's the $20 a month cost for the cost of the electricity in both items. It's the fixed cost that's different. And I can
Why-
explain that. I'll explain the next one on that one in a minute as we get to that one. This particular one, SNU charges in the 2nd taxing district, they charge to install the fixture and the arm. There is no contract in place to cover that. And in the next item, I'm going to explain what I mean by the contract.
Okay, so but the wattage, the actual price of the electricity that we're paying is the same, no matter
It's a-
where we, is that my understanding?
It's about the same. There is a little difference in the charge, but it depends upon the number of kilowatt hours that is used. And if
Okay.
you use this fixture, it's the same. If the rate was the same, it would be identical. It varies a little between SNU territory and Eversource territory, but it's an approximate amount of $20 a month, and that can vary up or down slightly.
Okay, thank you for that.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments on this particular item? Seeing, oh, Councilmember Ayers, do you still have a question? No, okay. Seeing and hearing none, I will call for a vote. Can we stop sharing screen for just a second so I can see everybody? Sorry. I know we're going to be sharing screen again probably soon. Can I call for a vote? All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Great, thank you. That's unanimous. The second item is authorize the Department of Public Works to have Eversource Electric install 3 new streetlights on the existing utility poles at the north, south, and west approaches to the intersection of Dover Street and Prospect Street in accordance with the attached plan at an approximate cost of $60 per month to be paid for from account number as noted. Do I have a motion?
I
I move,
so-
Chair.
Oh, okay, go. Dom got it. Go ahead.
Ah, thank you. I'll move that, Chair. Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson. Paul, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes. I'm going to share my screen again and show you the
Sorry
area.
about that.
Once again, this is another request that we received. It was a petition that was submitted from the residents of both Dover and Prospect Street. The difference between this and the last item was falls in Eversource territory versus South Norwalk Electric and Water territory. And one of the differences is that SNU has a contract with the city that's a flat rate. In that contract, where we request lights to be installed, they will do so as part of that contract. And that includes the arm and the fixture, but does not include the electricity. So the fixed costs that we had in the last one do not exist in this one because it's already in the service rate that we pay out of that tax line item for streetlights that Mr. Meek was talking about. We have that in there. So as that contract is paid for, we don't have to then pay for the materials and labor like we do in SNU territory. So this is the intersection. It's Prospect Street and Dover Street. And right now in the blue, and I'm going to blow it up in a second so it's easier to see, we currently have streetlights here, here, and across the intersection on Prospect Street. They've requested additional streetlights in this area here, and that's why the wording was as you approach the intersection. And I will blow that up for people to see and make it a little easier for everyone to see. So they've asked for a new light here, away from the intersection as you approach it, over across the street on Dover Street here as you approach the intersection, and as you approach the intersection over on this side on Prospect Street too. It'll help illuminate the intersection better than what it currently is. And as I said, we've walked this in the field and we've talked with Eversource and they have agreed that it's something that could be done. And the item that you see, and I can scroll down and show you the spreadsheet on this particular one. And you'll see the difference in the spreadsheet for this is you have no fixed cost due to the reason I just talked about with the contract, but you have the 3 new lights at $20 a month for the $60 total.
Great, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or questions on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for a vote. Paul, I'll ask you to stop sharing your screen again one more time.
I'm going to do that.
Sorry
Yep.
about that. Thank you so much.
Just wait till anybody has any questions and then I'll stop once asked.
Yeah, so I'll call for another round of questions if anybody has any, but if not, then I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Great, that is unanimous. Thank you so much, Paul. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
No problem at all. So next is personnel and labor relations. Number 1, 2022 annual salary adjustments for ordinance employees in accordance with the revised pay plan for non-union appointed and elected officials. The city is requesting the Common Council's authorization and approval for the mayor to adjust the pay schedule of employees covered by this plan by 2.35% effective July 1, 2022. This adjustment to this pay schedule is consistent with the pay rate adjustments received by the city's unionized workforce in the settlement of the collective bargaining agreements. There are currently 22 city employees covered by this pay plan, and the funding has been allocated in the approved city budget for fiscal year 22-23. Do I have a motion? Anybody?
I'll move
the motion.
Thank you. I think that was Councilmember Johnson. We have Tina Fogel here from Human Resources to discuss this point, so I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hello, Public Safety and General Government Committee. Thank you for having me. As you know, I am the new Chief Human Resource Officer here for the City of Warwick. I think I'm going on, I just finished 3 months, so I'm still getting acclimated to the city, but very much enjoying my time here. So we're here to request that the 2.35% salary increase be instituted for the 22 ordinance employees based on the pay scale. I believe that was implemented a number of years ago. And as I have been indicated that this is the first step where we come to the committee and request this retroactive to July 1 of 2022.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councilmember Meek.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Fogel. Thank you, Eric McMurray. To Ms. Loricella's points, I'd like to know if there were evaluations done on these 22 positions. I'd also like a list of the 22 positions as they were. I recall years ago we had 12. I could be wrong. I'd like a list of the exact positions, and I don't want to have personal identifiable information in those. I'm dead fast against the news media publishing that. But as council people, we need to know. So I'd like to have a list of those positions and to know whether or not those people in those positions received evaluations for the fiscal year. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm happy to provide you with that list. I actually can send it off in a minute. I'll have to remove the personally identifiable information, but that I can send it over. As far as evaluations, so I'm still in the assessment period. At this point, there does not seem to be a formal evaluation, a really robust formal evaluation process for ordinance or any other staff member here in the city of Norwalk. The mayor and I have talked about this extensively, and I am in the process of presenting him a proposal, which I believe will then come to you for review. I have not seen evaluations, and I don't see at this point that there is a process, but that will be implemented. That's one of my, this 3 or 4 priorities. That is one of the priorities, because I believe that not only because we're dealing with taxpayer funds, is it important to evaluate our staff, but it's also important to provide them with feedback, whether constructive or positive feedback, in order to allow them to improve, identify areas of weakness, and quite frankly, celebrate the great work that's also happening. And so that is a process that we will be implementing in the very, very near future. I apologize. I have not come across any formal evaluation process at this point, and I apologize if that's incorrect, but at this point I have not seen any.
Okay, it's just work in progress, and that's fine. I appreciate your candor and your answers. You know, I guess I would classify this adjustment as a COLA. This is nothing to do with merit, whether or not somebody overperformed or underperformed, correct?
I agree. I believe that it's consistent with the collective bargaining agreements that were negotiated, and it seems to be the practice that they're consistent with those. There's nothing to do. I shouldn't say that. I mean, obviously we should always be looking at increases and the reason for that, but these are not necessarily connected to performance. These are, you're right, a cost of living increase.
Okay, and I don't know if it'd be clear to me from the city's org chart, but this forthcoming list of the positions, these are all at will for the mayor. These are not, or there's some like assistant department heads and such. Will that be clear? I just want to know, when I see this list of 18, you know, where their spot is within the city hierarchy.
So there's 22 total. They are chiefs and people in those chiefs' office. None of them are in collective bargaining agreements. There are a few department heads. I'll send you that list right away. I just don't want to take my attention away from answering questions, but as soon as we're done, I can send it to you.
We could have it before the council meeting. It's been a long week and a short summer at the same time.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm all set.
Thanks. Councilmember Ayers.
My question was going to be about the evaluations, but with a different light. Since you are walking into, we would say, new territory and establishing the evaluations, will you be basing the evaluation plan that you are proposing to the mayor based on the evaluations that the unionized employees are going, or are you looking for a different metric of evaluation?
So at this point, I'm sorry, I hope that was the end of your question. I didn't mean to step on you if you weren't finished.
I'm fine.
Okay. So, at this point, actually, as part of the efficiency study, a recommendation was made to institute an evaluation process for the bargaining unit employees. It appears that there is not one at this point. We would probably do something similar, although for ordinance employees, I believe that would be a little bit more robust. I would think that there would be a narrative that whomever supervisor would probably create, other than just standard metrics. We'd want those standard metrics as well as a narrative. And we have also been talking about, I don't love the term 360 evaluation, but where we also speak to staff members and other people who deal with these individuals in a professional manner to kind of get a full picture of the work that is happening. So I think they'll be in line with the proposal for the unionized employees, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe these 22 individuals had a little bit, one or two more steps in order to complete the evaluation process.
Okay, I think my concern is because these are public administrators. I think the lens that we evaluate them needs to be in a lens of a public administrator with some scope or some look at service and the deliverables of service. How you do that, how creative you want to be to do that, I will leave that up to you. But I think it's beneficial for the city and beneficial for the people we service for that to be a part of the metrics, not just if they're coming to work on time and not just the basic stuff that sometimes the union look at, but also their interaction with other employees as well as the community. And there's very creative ways and very different ways that you can do that in the public administration, sphere. You know, you want to retain people, you want to give people the ability to have upward mobility. We want to put all that and work that into the evaluations under the scope of your office. But I definitely really want to emphasize the fact that because these are public administrators and high up public administrators, we really should be, there should be some type of wording of how they are interacting with the community. Additionally, the citizen who participated in public participation stated about the DEI officer. My question is that there will not be any evaluation, or could you think that there would be any evaluation around a particular position in DEI?
I'm not sure that I understand the question. I know we are in the process, just to give you without, we do. So we have gone through a first round of interviews for that.
That's a whole other committee. My question is the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Is there going to be a part of that in this new evaluation that you are presenting? Are you going to be evaluating these 22 people on that?
I apologize. I misunderstood the question. Absolutely. That's a key component, both in leadership and in public service. And so we will be looking at inclusivity, et cetera, as part of the evaluation process.
Okay. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments and or questions? Ms. Fogel, I have a question in terms of, and you may not have the answer to this right now, but in terms of putting together this process, how long do you think it will take in terms of putting this into place in terms of evaluations or a process for evaluations?
Sure. So as I mentioned too, we have a few different priorities. Our first priority has been on recruitment. We're trying to really look at that process to ensure that it's open. We're trying to speed the timeline up, but also not dilute the process. So that's kind of been my first priority. The second priority is the evaluation process, because as I mentioned, I think it's very important for people to get both constructive as well as positive feedback. So I would say, as far as a timeline, I would probably be able to present something to the mayor by end of September, beginning of October. And then obviously depending on the iterations, speaking with him and going through the process with him, I would think well before the end of the year, it would probably come to this committee, because that is my guess as to the process that we'd want it to be vetted by this committee to ensure that we were hitting all of the areas and that there weren't any additional questions or ambiguities. It's one thing when I write an evaluation because, in my space versus I'd like other people to see it and say, well, what does this really mean? What are you trying to get from this? And things like that. So that vetting process will be really important.
I really appreciate that. I think it's really important that we, I want to thank you for bringing this to the attention of this committee and to the mayor's office and making sure that we're doing our due diligence. And I think it's really important on both of those points that you mentioned. It's taxpayers' dollars, obviously, but also we want to give constructive feedback and praise whenever necessary to our employees as well. So does anybody else have any other questions or comments on this piece? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, we have one opposed. Any abstentions? No, I do not see any. All right, thank you very much. That passes, and we'll go on to the Common Council at our next meeting.
Thank
Thank you, Ms. Vogel. So the last item on our agenda is discussion, and I'm going to bring on Michelle DeLuca. September is National Preparedness Month, and she is going to give us a presentation on being prepared and how we as a council can help. And I just think this is really good information, all year, but especially this time of year as we're going into this sort of time of year when we have to really think about it more than others. So I'll turn it over to Michelle DeLuca. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I will be mindful of time. Again, I put together a few slides that we'll just go over quickly. I wanted to leave some time for question and answers. But again, this will be pretty fast. Let's see, I'm going to share screen in a second. So again, September is National Preparedness Month. This is something that really was developed 2001, so the year after or the year of 9/11. Every year, the FEMA, Department of Homeland Security, and the partners involved really try to focus on making preparedness easy and accessible for residents. Really, again, throughout the year, we always talk about preparedness, especially related to storms. Again, if something is coming, then again, we always promote preparedness. We work with the partners, again, seasonal, holiday. So again, it always is front of mind, but again, nationally, there is a focus in September from the government. So there's a couple of basic steps. And again, you'll always hear it when we do a lot of our press releases, again, videos that come out, social media. It's really make a plan, build a kit, typically stay informed. So again, we know that disasters happen anywhere. Always encouraging folks to have plans for all family members, so including pets, seniors, infants, and really anyone in the household that has special access, functional, or other medical needs. We want to make sure that kids especially, and children are really a focus this year with National Preparedness Month. So making sure kids know important phone numbers, encouraging people to know evacuation routes, but then also have meeting places and meeting plans. So one of the topics that came up when you had the fire safety presentation was, again, part of our messaging is always have a meeting place outside the home in case something does happen. Again, everyone knows where to meet. And it's the same with a larger disaster. It could be in the home and it could be within the neighborhood. We want people to know, again, where they can find each other. And then also, again, how to plan to stay connected with family and friends during an emergency. Now, with the rise of technology, there's a lot of apps, whether it's, again, Facebook, social media, texting. We want to make sure that families know how to stay in touch with each other. Letting them know a simple, I'm okay, here's where I am, really does alleviate a lot of stress if they know their family members are safe. Build a kit with everyone in mind. So again, normally you'll hear, again, when storms are coming, especially in the Gulf, you'll always hear the public information officers talking about, having food, water, flashlights, first aid kits. Again, anytime we know severe weather is coming, we encourage residents to really, again, check their supply kit and make sure they have the basics. Check the batteries, make sure everything works and that nothing has expired. And then again, during September, we again will focus on, again, prompting residents to make sure they have supplies for all family members, including, again, infants, older adults, pets, any special items that they may need. And again, everyone can help with this in the household, and it really is, again, for families that, again, may not be as familiar with this topic. Again, it's a good way to start some conversations and involve everyone in the family with putting something together. And then we also focus on the fact that it doesn't have to be expensive. We have tips for preparedness for that really costs little or nothing. So we'll always work to get that information out. So then something as simple as, when people are shopping, grabbing 1 or 2 items for their disaster kit, especially if things are on sale. So again, making sure that we can find ways to bring down some of the costs for preparedness, so it's not out of the reach of our residents. And most people do have a lot of items in their household. So again, if part of it is, just look at what you have already in place, pull all that together, maybe a duffel bag or a box, and then figure out what else you may need and go from there. So again, making it manageable and easy, and something that they do once or twice a year, just to get in the habit. Next, again, this is a little bit of a new one for FEMA. Protect your family and your property for disasters. And this is more on the financial side of disaster readiness. So we always want to make sure that residents take time at least once a year to review insurance policies, understand what's covered, what's not covered, understanding how to file a claim. And this could be for homeowners as well as renters if they have renters insurance. We always encourage people to do a home inventory, especially before a major storm is coming. So again, something that's named, if we know it's heading our way, when we talk preparedness, we'll usually talk about doing a home inventory. Again, something as simple as walking around your home, taking some pictures, taking videos, outside and inside. So if something does happen, then there's some updated photos and information that they can use. And then again, one of my favorite websites is the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes, Flash. And that actually has a lot of information for property owners and renters on how to prepare your home, how to protect your home, how to do mitigation. Again, a lot of no cost, low cost items and resources, videos, how-tos that are really helpful. Again, if we know a storm is coming, they have information for hurricane season as well as winter. and some of the other year-round hazards that we may encounter, but then also, again, on a national basis, you'll see tips for hurricanes, floods, tornadoes, and the whole range of disasters. And of course, Fluffy and Fido are part of the family. So for those that have pets, we want to make sure that pets are protected as well. Our disaster shelters are pet friendly, but again, owners do have to have medication. The animal needs to have his or her shots, vaccinations, whatever pets get, collars, ID, and a leash. So again, we want to make sure that pets are protected as well. When we had the shelter open during Sandy, I believe we had a turtle, an iguana, a couple fish, a snake, and I'm not quite sure. There are a few other exotic animals. So again, we found a place for them all. They were all safe during the storm. But mostly we did have the cats and the dogs. So again, they are welcome in the shelter, but they are kept separate from the dormitory area. So again, we kind of keep the pets in one area, and then the general sleeping area is a little bit down the hall, just to make sure people with allergies or other issues are not put at risk. And then again, teach youth to prepare for disasters. Again, we know that disasters, any kind of emergencies are stressful, not just for kids, but for adults. So ready.gov has a lot of tips for helping kids cope with emergencies, as well as some fun activities and games. So again, it really is teaching them the culture of preparedness. Again, we always teach kids to look both ways before they cross the street, put on a seatbelt. This is very much the same thing again. So throughout the year, again, especially when we have storms coming, again, we do know that visually people do respond a little bit better to the infographics and charts, or again, images a little bit better than sometimes seeing a lot of text. So whether it's on social media or the website, you'll usually see us post some images. We always try for educational. Every once in a while, we will throw in something a little bit funny, because again, it is stressful. So if we can get people to relax a little bit, smile, it is definitely worth it. And again, we always focus on that educational piece. So before the storm, we're talking about, some of the basics of, how to prepare for power outages. And then afterwards, what to keep, what to throw away. A lot of our messaging is done between fire, police, health department, the mayor's office. Again, we are always coordinating the messages. So there's the consistency, but then also, again, if all of us are promoting and encouraging the same safety tips, it does go far. I mean, the police department has an amazing following on social media. So again, when they post information, it definitely has a great reach. And again, by making sure that we're all sharing the same information, it makes sure, or again, it helps ensure that we're on the same page. Sorry, I know I'm going fast. And again, depending on the storm and the impact, again, our messages will vary a little bit. But we do try to, again, make sure that they are visual. We also try to make sure that information is in more than one language, and sometimes, again, more than one format. So typically we may post videos online. Again, we have a summer safety page. We have a winter storm center, and then we have a hurricane safety page. So again, it kind of varies with the season, but if something is coming, we can also post videos very easily, and try to make sure that resources are available in at least English, Spanish, and we know, again, Haitian Creole is another one we try to get information translated into. The wonderful thing with ready.gov is that most of the materials are available in multiple languages. And then they actually have a Spanish version of ready.gov, which is listo.gov. So again, all the information that's on the Ready site is on the Listo site. I may be mispronouncing that, but it is a great resource. And we do try to make sure that when we're doing our messaging for preparedness, we're promoting both of those sites and pages. And again, the ready.gov site, you can normally find a lot of their materials in about 9 to 10, if not more languages, depending on what the handout is. Other events that we do during September, our big one, actually now technically October, is the open house. We also will work with the police department for their National Night Out. Usually we'll have a table for that. This year I'm working with the libraries to promote, we had some insulated grocery bags with some safety tips. So the library and the senior center will be handing those out to residents or patrons. And then we'll also work with Le Mans Group, and I don't want to say push out. We'll send out some preparedness tips for the groups that are part of his community partners group. And again, I mentioned it on the COVID call that we had today, really again, helping the providers and the nonprofits prepare themselves and their staff for emergencies, but then also prepare the families and the clients and patients that they work with for emergencies as well. And again, it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. But again, having that conversation throughout the year is always helpful. The open house is 9 to 12. Our pre-COVID numbers for the open house were about 2,000, if not a little bit more. We took a break for a couple of years, so this is our first year back. So hopefully we'll have the same, if not better, turnout. And then we also do a food collection, and this year it will go to person. So again, we often get a couple 100 pounds of food for that organization, and we alternate years between person to person and the open door shelter for the beneficiary of the food that's collected. So this is also, again, so I started the presentation part, so you guys have a good understanding of how you can prepare yourselves, and also, again, share the information with friends, family, anybody and anyone that will listen. But for this portion, again, I did want to talk to you a little bit about what some of our priorities are during the storm, and then also how you can help as common council members. So the first, and again, these are examples, they're not a complete list of everything we're doing in the city. So again, the first really 24 to 48 hours after a storm, we're working with the utilities to make sure that we're able to get roads open for emergency vehicles. This is what we call make safe. So again, making sure that roads at least have one access point for police, fire, EMS to get through. That's always going to be the one of the top priorities. We're doing search and rescue operations, conducting damage assessments, shelter operations if we have a shelter open, and then a lot of communication and information sharing. Again, part of the assessment is power outages and some of the locations of the biggest outages. If we know that there's a widespread outage in a specific area, then we may have police and fire apparatus go to those areas with their paging, or have some information and handouts so people can come up, and again, they would use our PA system in the vehicles to share information as needed. And we did that quite a bit during Sandy. 48 to 72 hours, we're continuing to clear roads and debris, continuing damage assessment, especially for residential and businesses. Working with utilities on restoration. And again, we know that restoration may be multi-day, if not longer. So again, we're providing priorities. We're looking at some of the critical infrastructure to make sure that's online as quickly as possible. Providing access to potable water, continuing shelter operations, and then again, sharing information. And again, a lot of departments and partners are all involved in these steps. So really, again, the main core of the city's emergency management team is fire, police, EMS, public works, mayor's office, health department, the building department. So again, those are probably some of our biggest partners. And then obviously Eversource, new TDD, and again, Red Cross and a lot of the nonprofits as well. So it is not a one-person show. Again, we have a very good team that either would be here at the fire department as well as working virtually. Beyond the first couple days, again, the cleanup and debris management continues. Utilities and restoration continues, tracking costs for possible reimbursement, continuing to provide city services. And then obviously we always work with our state and regional partners as well as neighbors to coordinate response and recovery needs. So again, it may include bringing commodities in if needed, water, food. Again, we've not really needed that in the past. But again, that's part of all the planning that we do throughout the year. And then for how you can help, again, before the storm, encouraging your constituents to prepare, reminding them to contact their electric providers if they have any electric dependency, signing up for text alerts, apps for their providers. And I say providers, again, because we have 3 different power companies. They all vary a little bit with what services and apps they offer. So again, if you know most of your constituents are Eversource, just push the Eversource app and resources. Encourage them to stay informed about weather updates and city services. And this may be apps. We have a notification for that where we can push notification through the phone, social media, the website, and traditional news. However they choose to get their information, what's really important for us is that they are getting information. So it's not just, I know again, when things can get stressful, we all want to put our head in the sand, but it's important that, especially as a coastal community, if we know that a storm is coming, it's important that everybody take responsibility, monitor the storm, pay attention to what's happening. We will push the information out, but they also have to be able to receive it. So again, encouraging your constituents to have that situational awareness. Again, if a disaster opens, pets will be welcome. But again, if they have other plans, if they have other options, friends, family, that's always going to be a lot more comfortable than the shelter. The shelter is, it's a lifeboat, it's not a yacht. So again, for that disaster, for those couple days, if they can stay with others, that's always encouraged. But again, the shelter will be there. And that's something we work with the Red Cross on throughout the year. And then sharing information from trusted sources. Again, we know that social media is packed with information that's not entirely accurate, or again, maybe slanted one way or the other. So again, we really focus on information from the National Weather Service, the state of Connecticut Division of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, DEMIS, obviously Governor Lamont, as the governor, again, he's getting information from DEMIS. So really looking at the sources that you're sharing regarding preparedness, and again, what's happening during the response and recovery operations. Again, there's going to be a lot of information out there in social media. So again, just promoting information from trusted sources. After the event, if residents are contacting you, especially if they have power outages, really making sure that they're reporting outages to their provider. Don't assume that they know a person is without power, especially on some of those smaller cul-de-sacs where maybe the onesies and twosies where, it's just like a small number of outages. Again, Eversource may not be fully aware that they are without power or the other utilities. So again, letting them know and putting that ticket in is critical. Same thing, encouraging residents to contact customer service to report issues, which then allows us, especially Public Works, to be able to document and track. Again, we know a lot of residents will, call every department to try to get a live person, call the mayor's office, call Bob Duff, Congressman Himes, Senator Blumenthal. We get it all. But again, being able to contact customer service, so there is that tracking of an issue, is a lot more helpful. Again, our turnaround, don't drown, again, reminding residents to stay off the roads, let Public Works and others do their job. Don't drive through standing water, don't walk around down power lines, and assume all power lines are active. If we do have a major disaster and we are collecting damage, then again, encourage your constituents, if they had it, to report it. Again, we often have residents that had damage, especially when we are struggling to collect it in order to get FEMA reimbursement, who just tell us, oh, well, my neighbor had more damage. I assume they reported it, so I didn't bother. Again, the more we can get that, and we try to make it very easy. So again, the more damage we have, the better. The better case it makes, it helps us make to the state and then ultimately FEMA to show that we had the costs and the level of damage to be able to qualify for that assistance. Sometimes it's very easy. And so, for example, during Sandy, a presidential disaster declaration was issued even before the storm came, because we knew the severity of the damage we were expecting. Other storms, it's easy to show it. And then there's some storms like Isaias where we actually had to knock on doors, turn over stones, and really work hard to get the damage reports. But fortunately, all that work paid off because, again, we were able to make the case, and that's what was able to get FEMA assistance. So again, if residents have damage, making sure that they report it. And again, sharing information from trusted sources. Okay, that was a lot in a little time. So again, for websites, again, one of my favorites is always going to be ready.gov. Flash.org is another great resource for residents, and FEMA.gov. All three have a kid-friendly page or kid-friendly pages. The city's website. Again, right now we have the hurricane spotlight up. Once we get through hurricane season, we'll probably maybe take a break, and then it'll be winter again. So we'll put the winter spotlight up. And then again, some good apps. Again, FEMA's a good app. Again, one of my favorites is the American Red Cross emergency app. If you are in your Apple or Google store, it's a red exclamation point. Red Cross has quite a few different preparedness apps. The emergency one is kind of a universal. CT Prepares is the state of Connecticut website. And then for weather, AccuWeather. So again, it's great to be able to download the apps yourself. Again, maybe pick one or two favorites. And then again, when you are talking to constituents and encouraging them to prepare, then you can show them the apps that you have downloaded as well to really start the conversation. And I think that's it. I will turn over for questions. And then, like I said, hopefully if you're able to come to the open house on the 1st, we definitely would love to see you there.
Oh, I would so love to be there. I just realized I have a wedding that weekend out of town, but I will definitely send the kids. It's such a great event. Councilmember Meek.
Yeah, hi, Michelle. Thank you for the detailed presentation, and I can see thought into this. My question is about the cellular phone service in the city, how that's viewed. I mean, everybody knows there's some spots in the city that are just miserable. And when we've had some of these power outages, I can speak specifically for like the valley in Cranberry between Cranberry and Saugatuck, where it's just dead. And when power and internet and other things go offline, it's even worse. And I personally have contacted investor relations of Verizon, and like they just don't care. And I don't know how we can put the screws into them to get them to realize, like, you know, this is a vital part of our emergency response system. And, you know, if we're talking about keeping communications open and flowing, we really need these guys to partner with us and invest in the backbone, because things are clearly missing, at least in this part of town. I'm sure I've heard Rowayton, other stories, you know, it's just, it's something they need to step up their game on. And is there anything the city can do to help bring this to a forefront? Would be, you know, I think a lot of people would be very happy if we could get better service.
Great. I know we've had some conversations with AT&T, Verizon. Again, a lot of it is, you know, promises of, you know, we're working on it. But we can always follow up. I know, again, with some of the enhancements to the different radio systems and kind of building out some of the towers for the existing infrastructure. Hopefully, again, it may be getting better, but again, we often get the same promises that I'm sure you are getting as well. But again, we always follow up, and, you know, we do have those areas identified of where those problem spots are. So again, those are the ones that we're advocating the most for when we do get those opportunities. I know that's not a great answer, but it is. Again, it's something that's on our minds that it needs to improve. Again, it is, even with the radio system that we have within the public safety network, it's always, again, looking for some of the improvements in the connectivity in those spots.
Yeah, it's anecdotal. I'm not a physics expert by any means, but I notice here in Cranberry, the service, if like the broadcast from Danbury drops off, it like tries to pick up Tapage on Long Island, and like the phone doesn't handle it well. And, you know, it's just, again, anecdotal, but like every time you lose cell phone service, everybody knows you just drove past Cranberry Market. And it's like, this problem's not going away. And I don't know why anyone doesn't pay attention to it inside the service providers. But anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thanks again.
Are there any other questions or comments? So I just want to reemphasize, I thought that was a great presentation. Like, everybody should be following, you know, at least the police department, but the city, the fire department, emergency services on social media. If you're not already, they always have a lot of really great resources. I would encourage all of the council members here and beyond to share those items on their social media pages as well when the time comes. Michelle, I often think that our city website is not very user-friendly, because that is my profession. So how can constituents easily go about finding the resources that you gave us? I am going to push them out of my newsletter, and I did just do a quick search, and hurricane came up right away, no problem. But if it's like, you know, winter storm or something, like, what are some key search terms, or how can we easily point people to the resources on our own website?
So that actually was one of the reasons why we created those spotlights a couple years ago, and I was able to get very lucky. And again, working with Larry Manzi and some of the others in IT, of being able to kind of corner that market. So again, we were able to create a series of spotlights. Part of that understanding of it has to be easy. If I were to try to, again, especially winter storm or hurricane or any specific topic, if I were to try to find my page, it can take multiple clicks. So part of that workaround was creating the spotlights to be able to say, you know, again, while we're in hurricane season, it's front and center on that main page, and it'll take you to ultimately it's my pages on the emergency management. So again, that was kind of the quick fix.
Yep.
For that.
It was smart. It was really smart. Now everybody is catching on and doing their own spotlights, I see.
I still corner the market though. I think you still get top billing. And again, we always are trying to kind of add a few more, but again, that because we know, especially if if a storm is coming, people don't want to do multiple clicks to get to kind of a subpage. And so again, that's been very helpful. And a lot of times we'll just say, during a winter storm, norwalkt.org//winter. As far as, some of the other times during the year, I definitely think we can make it a little bit easier. I would love to have a standing spotlight. So even if there's nothing going on, again, kind of those in between disaster seasons that I can still kind of get my own spotlight. Still working on that, but.
Is there, I'm going to look right now. And so in case you don't have the answer to this, but is there just a vanity URL that takes you? No, there is not. It would be an easy thing to just add a vanity URL that's like emergency services, like norwalkt.org/emergency services. And I think that would help a lot too if we haven't done that yet. But I think the spotlight is a great thing. So everybody go to norwalkt.org and go to the bottom of the page and you can find those spotlights there at any given time. So I think that's great. Councilmember Ayers.
Thank you. Michelle, I have a quick question. I've seen it throughout City Hall publicized about they're asking people to volunteer to participate in I don't want to say it, I said the disaster team, but that's not the right term. Can you just speak about that very briefly? What the expectation, what that entails so people can know?
Sure. So the health department I want to say a few years ago, but I think it's probably a little bit longer now. I think I'm showing my age sometimes. They received funding to be able to have a staff person to focus on volunteers. So the emergency response team is actually through the health department. So again, they have a dedicated staff person who manages that team. They were invaluable especially during COVID with food deliveries, some of the different clinics and sites. And then they're also trained in sheltering to work with the Red Cross to be able to help staff a disaster shelter if we have one open. So again, the emergency response team falls under the health department, but we work very closely with them on other response. So again, if we had an EOC, an emergency operations center open, some volunteers could assist there if needed. Again, they can help with outreach. So if we know a power outage has occurred, that's multiple days, the emergency response team can help with some outreach for, more of that safe food handling of, going around, making sure people are throwing out what they need to throw out, keeping what they can. So helping with some of the education. And then, like I said before, helping in a shelter if needed. So I believe they do a couple of training classes throughout the year. And then again, now that we're kind of in this post-COVID environment, they're actually doing a in-person shelter training, I think on September 6th. So they're hoping to do a few more in-person classes now. But typically there's like a fall session and a spring session that they start bringing all new volunteers together. But I do want to say they will accept volunteers really throughout the year. But Donna Schlegel at the health department can provide some more details about that. So again, their health department is a fantastic partner in this. But again, since they do have a staff person who manages the team, again, that's been really beneficial for the city, especially during COVID.
No, thank you for that. I just wanted the opportunity to promote that service and allow people to know that that is a volunteer option in a disaster, that if you are able to help out, and a disaster doesn't always mean just a hurricane or the lights out. Like it could be a plethora of things that there are opportunities for citizens to volunteer. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? Councilmember Alterman.
Hi, I'm in the car, so I just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, I just had a quick question. Councilperson McMurray, I know you mentioned your newsletter, and I know that Councilperson Najilski Eichner does one. Is there a way for people like to go to the city website to sign up to get your guys' newsletter, or any type of, if the police department or fire department or emergency services put anything like that out, that people can sort of sign up to receive?
So that's a really good question. I have been pushing for us as a council to do a newsletter since I got elected, and we haven't quite been able to move that forward. I think if we did something like that, it would be very possible to have that on the website. I also think we should probably have a council webpage on our website, other than what is currently there, which is just a list of our names and our districts and our contact information. I think that's something we can definitely work with the new communications director on. It's something I've talked to her about many times. I was trying to start my newsletter just to try to get the wheels moving. But I think it's a really good point, a really good idea. But as of right now, no. The only way to sign up for my newsletter, and I think Councilmember Najelski Eichner's, is to go to our Facebook pages, and there is an archive of mine there. So you can go back and see them. You don't have to register for it, or you can register for it. I send it out monthly, usually at the beginning of the month. So mine is not specific to District C, but there is some stuff that's specific to District C. And it's just a way for me to communicate what we're all working on. One more way, because again, I do think our website is a little antiquated, unfortunately. It's just hard to navigate. So
No, I agree.
yeah, I think everybody's frustrated with it.
Yeah, no, it was my number one, complaint. My second question is basically the same, but I know that organizations use things like MailChimp.
Yep.
And so I don't know if there is a way to do some kind of service like that and just have like some kind of sign up link on our website that's like people can just submit their email and be like, whenever this is available, I'd like to be a part of it.
Yeah, I
But
think it's a
anyway,
really
that
good
was what- I
idea.
don't know. And I know like politicians do the mass text and stuff. I know that costs money, but I don't know if there's like some kind of way we could do it. But anyway, I can talk offline later when I'm not in a car with children, but I just wanted to check if any of that was already going. But I'm glad
Yeah,
to
no,
hear.
I think it's a really good point. I use MailChimp. I believe Nora uses MailChimp. I think, it's free up until a certain number of subscribers. But yeah, we can totally talk about that more. I think it's a good idea. I'll bring it up with Michelle too.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No problem. Are there any other questions or comments?
And constant contact, a little cheaper.
Yeah, Constant Contact is another one that's good.
And usually, I mean, during, again, for preparedness, and we do work again closely with the other departments and with Michelle to push information out. And again, Josh before her. During the storm itself, for the most part, we're really relying on, again, the public information officer through the mayor's office to push out a lot of the information. So again, you won't always see a lot of the, like my Facebook and Twitter site. I will retweet and kind of share information as I can, but I'm not doing a whole lot of original posts, partly because we're dealing with a response in the public.
I was
safety
going to say,
component.
you are probably dealing with a little bit more important thing than doing social media at that moment, I would hope, and I would expect. So
Yeah, so we
I
really
think
rely
we can
on
give you a
Michelle.
pass on that.
Yeah, so the mayor's office to, again, send out some of the messaging. So again, you don't always see like us kind of front and center. A lot of it's coming from the mayor's office. Again, when we can, we'll also do some updates to the common council members. We did that quite a bit, I think, during Isaias. So I remember Josh was out, so I was doing the public information for a couple days. And again, we just sent a quick update to the common council members, letting everyone know what was happening. And that's something we can easily do as well. This way you have that awareness, so you're able to answer questions a little bit better.
Yeah, and anytime you send me an email, I send it out to the entire council too, just so they know. And that can be about, you know, a rainstorm coming in with heavy rains. It doesn't have to be an actual emergency or anything.
Michelle, this is Nicole. You know what? Y'all was talking and another question popped in my head. I was reading the almanac and they're saying that this upcoming winter is supposed to be a very bad winter for us. And you had touched on in your presentation, and it was a very thorough presentation, thank you, about the shelters. Do you know how many people we can shelter?
So we have Newark High School and Brian McMahon. We do know that Newark High School will at some point be under construction. So that will take that off the list and we'll look at some alternates. Brian McMahon, again, really is our primary. To date, again, I've been here now 15 years. We've never hit capacity for that shelter, even during Sandy. And that was open about 7 days. Sheltering at Brian McMahon High School. And again, we look at really the big gym and the little gym. It's about 400 plus in those areas. We could use some additional swing space. So again, with some of the additional space at Brian McMahon, so the Center for Global Studies, some of the other spaces could be used if needed, but typically we try to focus on keeping everybody in those two gyms just for ease and kind of control of the space. Again, and it's important to know that the sheltering operation, again, normally is happening and school is not in session. Those spaces can be kind of locked off from the rest of the school if needed. So again, if school was in session or kids were there, there's an outside entrance and obviously the exits. So you can come and go from the outside of the building and not actually go through the hallways or anything else. So we'd bring food upstairs, the showers and facilities are all kind of in that same gym area. But really, again, we want to make sure, again, for everybody's safety, again, typically these schools are not in session when the shelter is open. But again, McMahon is pretty big, Newark High School is pretty big. So I'm not overly worried about shelter space. And I knock on my wooden desk as I say that. And again, we have cots that we've put together from using regional Homeland Security money. So all the 14 towns in the area have a cache of shelter supplies. We also have host a cache of state cots. So again, really, we've never had a shortage, even with Sandy. And again, that was the largest sheltering operation we've had. Again, typically for a winter storm, unless power is out, we wouldn't open an overnight shelter. Again, we'll have like warming centers, we have cooling centers during the summer. But again, unless there's widespread outages, most people do prefer to stay home. So again, we always kind of keep an eye on the weather. Again, we know this was supposed to be an above average hurricane season. So far, it's been a bit of a dud. We are keeping an eye on, again, storms kind of making their way across the Atlantic. But again, it's even with all the forecasts and the almanacs and everything else, once you really start looking at the long range, it really is hard to predict. So again, we always get the forecast for the season, but until we actually are kind of in the season and can see the different variables at play, it's kind of hard to predict what we'll get.
Good night, all. I'm sorry, I have a hard stop here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Are there any other questions or comments? No. Well, thank you, Michelle. I really appreciate your thoroughness on that and putting that together. It was really appreciated. And we'll definitely work on pushing that information out to more of our constituents as well. And Heidi, I already emailed Michelle Matthews Woods to see what she says about our Common Council page on the website, so we can get that going.
Great, thank you.
No problem. Our next meeting is September 22nd. If there are no further comments or discussion items, I will call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
Second.
Councilmember Ayers. I appreciate it, and everybody have a great night. And thank you for all of your thoughtfulness on tonight's meeting.
Not
Thank
all.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you. Have a good night.
Have a good night.